In professional sports, a franchise player is an athlete who is not simply the best player on their team, but one that the team can build their franchise around for the foreseeable future.
Welcome into a brand new edition of Franchise Players here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. You can watch every Friday exclusively on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio. And you can actually hear Franchise Players in the Triad on terrestrial radio every Friday afternoon in Greensboro on WWBG 1470 AM at 5 p.m. every Friday, started rush hour. And if you missed it, you can hear it on WTOB 96.7 FM 980 AM in Winston, Salem. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. Loaded show this Friday, per usual. Brendan Marks from the Athletics going to stop by, talk a little Carolina hoops. My Tar Heels looking good, and I need it. I told my wife yesterday, I
need something, brother.
I deserve this. After what I had to go through with the Panthers the past couple of years, I deserve the Tar Heels actually being back to nationally relevant. So
they didn't disappoint. Trash, but we knew that was going to happen.
Yeah. Shout out to Hubert Davis and the Tar Heels. He went to the portal and built the Dean Smith team. So like I'm very happy with them. Of course, we'll talk about Duke too. He's the beat writer for both Carolina and Duke for the Athletic. So he'll come through and discuss that. And Chris Lee will stop by as well to give us an update on the Carolina Panthers coaching search, GM search, just owner search, everything. Just clean it all out. Clean it all out. Just like that first snow of the winter. It's just gonna clean out of germs, like Grandma used to say. Like get it all out of here.
Yeah.
We'll see what's happening. They've interviewed a couple of folks, and I just heard they just interviewed Bobby Slowik from Houston, the offensive coordinator. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But before we get into all that, my man from WFMY News 2 Sports, Jaelen Gilkey in the house. You got some big shoes to fill because I tapped you to do the NFC divisional round picks. And last week, the homie B-Dot slid through and literally got every wild card pick right. And he even picked against his Dallas Cowboys and like called it like a day or two before it went down. And it went down kind of in the way he described it. So big shoes to fill, 4 huge games, Jaelen. What's going on, man? How you doing this week?
I'm blessed, Desmond. I appreciate you having me back. I can't wait. This is the best weekend in football coming up, the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Still got enough games to keep you entertained for 2 days, all day for 2 days, and they're usually great. So I can't wait to see what's on tap this weekend.
Yeah, I think this weekend and March Madness opening weekend are probably the 2 best weekends in sports because you got March Madness, you got like 4 days of just like stuff going on. But this, usually it's the 8 best teams in the NFL. Usually, I guess you could kind of the 8 hottest teams, I guess you could say, are left over. Let's just dive right in.
The 8 best right now, they're ready to go.
They probably are.
These are the 8 best teams.
Sure. Let's dive in. Saturday, January 20th, 2024, 4:30 p.m. The 4 seed, the Houston Texans and C.J. Stroud, red hot right now. Talk of the NFL, going up to Baltimore to see your boys. Number 1 seed, Baltimore Ravens, and that whole crew. They've been probably number 1 or number 2 best team in the NFL all season with San Francisco. It's an AFC matchup. It's on ABC and ESPN. No, there are no Peacock-specific games this week for those that were mad about it last week. What's your initial thoughts on this one?
I think it's going to be a good one. These 2 teams met up week 1 to start the season this year. Baltimore won it 26-9. It was 7-6 to go into halftime, though. But I just think the experience, that hard-nosed defense that the Ravens are going to play, it's going to just be a little bit too much for the young pup, C.J. Stroud and the boys. I mean, they're such a young unit offensively. I think the key is just going to be the pressure that the Ravens are going to be able to get on. I do believe week 1 they got 5 sacks on C.J. Stroud. They weren't able to get the ball in the box in the end zone for any touchdowns. I'd imagine they're going to score this week. I'd imagine the game's going to be a lot closer than it was week 1. But I got the Ravens pulling it off, maybe 24-17, 24-30, something. 24-20, something like that. But it's just all about Lamar Jackson. Can the Texans be the answer to stopping Lamar Jackson? I mean, the last time they played, he didn't really have a good game. I do believe he had 1 touchdown and 2 picks.
Yeah.
So, but that was his first game in this Todd Monken system. Zay Flowers was still trying to figure it out. OBJ was trying to figure it out. And just in time, Mark Andrews is back. We got the emergence of Isaiah Likely over the last 6 weeks for the Ravens. I just think they got too many weapons right now. Big key for the Ravens, though, Marlon Humphrey is going to be out the corner. He's out. He's been dealing with a calf ever since week 17. And really, he hurt it earlier in the season as well. So this is the second injury stint with this calf. So I've got a little cause for pause there. But I think the Ravens have enough depth at corner, got all-pro second-year safety, Kyle Hamilton on the back end to ensure everything up. I just don't think the Texans are going to be able to really run the ball enough to be in this one with the Ravens or stop that pass rush either.
Yeah, it feels like the Texans are a year ahead of schedule, or maybe 2 years ahead of schedule. Yeah, they're way.
They fired coaches the last 2 seasons back to back.
Yeah, they've had like 4 coaches in 4 years or something crazy like that. I think somebody was
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, because it was a Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien went in, then they had an interim.
Lovey was there, Lovey Smith.
Then they had David Culley, then they had Lovey Smith last year.
And they only lasted like a year. You want to talk about owners with short triggers.
This
works out for them, though.
It has because, Houston over the last 3 years, Houston was considered a job that only a black coach would take because the pressure was too great and the situation was too bad.
Yeah.
They're firing guys every year. And
again, I was talking to B-Dot about this last week. I think 12 months ago, the state of the Houston Texans, like you had Stephen A. Smith on First Take basically saying no African-American head coach should go near this job. Like no African-American quarterback should go near this team. Yeah, it was a graveyard. It was a disaster. And they
get the right guy with the right understands the culture and how to establish a culture and lead men.
It helps that he was a former Texan.
Exactly. He remembers when they were relevant.
Yeah.
When they were the most relevant they've ever been in the franchise with him and J.J. Watt. So I love everything that the Texans have done. I just think, and I pray that the Ravens win this game Saturday because I can't deal. I'm not gonna be able to deal with it.
I think they got it. Like I had a tweet that went viral last week during the Houston wild card game, and I was just like, maybe it's okay for us as Panther fans to be like, maybe the Panthers messed up the #1 pick because C.J. Stroud is just different. Like when you're watching, he's just a different dude. Like it's no knock on Bryce Young. It's just he's so a different guy.
He's so great. But see, I just don't know how mentally strong he would have been able to be in this situation here.
Yeah, no, I don't think any quarterback would have been able to,
rookie. There's no rookie in the history of NFL football that would be able to have the mental toughness to be able to overcome this foolishness going on in Charlotte.
And I've seen people say has CJ Stroud having the best rookie quarterback season ever or whatever, and I'm like, he may very well be, but a lot went into it. Like they got so much collateral back from trading Deshaun Watson to the Browns.
And they traded up.
They traded up and got the second and third picks. Yeah,
that was really the killer. When they traded up for the third pick and took,
I thought it was wild.
Will Anderson, I was like, this is it. They're doing it. I was like, they're going in. They want to really make a splash right now.
And it paid off. So and they still got picks. They still got picks from that Deshaun trade. So like Houston's going to be a team to watch. But I'm with you. I think
they hit on so many players on that. I mean, because they got Tank Dell out of that trade.
Yeah, that's what it really takes.
Whole bunch of pieces out of the trade, and they still got more to go, like you said.
Yeah, so Houston, not so fast, not yet. Like Lee Corso would say, Baltimore has them moving on. I was saving this question for we got to this one because it does have to do with Lamar Jackson too. NFL divisional weekend, Saturday, January 20th, 2024. It's the nightcap on Saturday night. This one's shaping up to be a good one too. The 7th seed, the Green Bay Packers, they ain't supposed to be here either. Taking on the 1 seed, the San Francisco 49ers, who again, between them and Baltimore, felt like the 2 best teams in the NFL all year. Green Bay coming off of that butt whooping. I don't care what anybody said. They should put an asterisk by that score because that was not the score.
Yeah. It was 48 to 16.
What I watched.
That was the final. I cut it off then.
I was sitting there like, because I turned it when they got to 48. I was like, well, that's a wrap. And it really was like that before then. I left and came back like 3 minutes later. I was like, how did Dallas score 2 touchdowns in like 3 minutes?
Now you look at Dak got 3 touchdowns, 400 yards. Please.
His stats looking all better and stuff. I was like, that is not the game I watched.
Empty calories. That boy eating Snickers. Snickers. That's it.
What you got in this? Jordan Love, dude is throwing, not counting, I don't know what the stats are, but I know going into last week, in his last 9 games, he had thrown like 21 touchdowns and 1 interception. Like he has turned into what they hoped he would be and more. And to be honest, looking around the NFC, there's not a lot of quarterbacks I will land on before I get to Jordan Love at this point in terms of who I'd want running my team. Yeah. But it's San Francisco. They're probably the most loaded team in all of football. What you got going on here?
I'm with you on that, Des, though. I mean, on that NFC side, I'm not seeing too many names that I'm going to throw out there before I get to Jordan Love. And honestly, I mean, I'm going to go maybe Purdy and Jaelen Hurts just because they both got to the NFC Championship last year.
I'd
But see, but talent wise, I don't see it. But I'm just talking off production and what they've done.
I think I'd take him over Purdy. Yeah, I would take him over Purdy. Yeah.
Honestly, because he's got his arm stronger.
Mm-hmm.
The throws he makes off platform or more wild throws, he takes care of the ball just as well, if not better, over the last 9. Now, the 49ers did have a tougher schedule those last 9 weeks as well. So I think that into,
you squint your eyes a little bit when he's throwing it, you kind of see Aaron Rodgers a little bit.
Yeah, he's just a little darker, darker Aaron Rodgers back there.
Got a little more going on.
Light-skinned Aaron Rodgers for sure.
He believes in vaccines and things like that, but other than that,
we don't know that though. Anyway,
yeah, we don't know that actually. Yeah, they're not speaking Jordan Love. What do you got here? Because I was going to say, I think the MVP race is going to come down to Lamar Jackson or Christian McCaffrey, and both have legit claims to it. I'm kind of in my heart, I'm like, it should be CMC because to me, he's the best player in football, period. Like, if you put him on your team instantly elevates the offense, like, no matter who you are.
But no, I feel like my argument is the same for Lamar Jackson. I feel like if you put him on your team, he's the best player that you got. He's the most elusive, the most explosive, the most dangerous man in the league with the football. He's
gotten better too. He's not just a running quarterback. I can't stand it when people try to label him as that. He can throw coming out of college. Like he's never been. He's a real threat, but he can throw. Like he's not like he'd be like. Remember, like back in the day, you can go into a video game and build a player. Like, and you would go in and build a guy that's kind of like a running quarterback that could run faster than anybody, but he had an arm and he was. That's Lamar Jackson. That's literally Lamar Jackson. He's kind of a Mike Vick mixed with like I don't want to say Cam because his body's not that same way. More like RG3 kind of.
Yeah, I like that.
Like healthy RG, like his first 2 years or whatever. Like if you put. Well, I think he had 2 healthy years. His rookie year, like if you put those together, the size and the speed.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. I think he's definitely a combination between those 3 guys, whether it be Mike Vick, Steve McNair, and RG3. I think that's kind of like the only way to compare him to anybody. But in this game, the San Francisco versus Green Bay, I really want to say Green Bay. I really do.
I know a lot of people want to say Green Bay, but
I want to say Green Bay just because I think Jordan Love's more talented than Brock Purdy. I think, and the depth of the weapons that the Green Bay Packers have, it's almost to the caliber of the 49ers.
Like 4 receivers. Yeah.
Aaron Jones is no slouch. Let's go. No slouch. He in the NFC on the NFC side, he's going to be a top 5 running back. His stats aren't going to show it this year because he dealt with injury and they struggled to run the ball early. But he's a top 5 back on the NFC side for sure, just with his versatility and his explosion. He showed that against the Dallas team, but maybe they just quit. And then they got 4 legitimate receivers. 4, they're all either in first or second year, or maybe one's in the third year. But regardless, they're all super, super young, super, super talented. They'll burn up the field. I know the thing is San Francisco defense is considerably better than Green Bay's, in my opinion. But they said the same thing about Dallas. But I just don't think Green Bay is going to be able to punch the 49ers in the mouth in that defensive front. Those linebackers, way better, way higher caliber, way more physical than what they saw in Dallas. And I think they're another team a year ahead of schedule. So I'm going to go, unfortunately, with the 49ers on this one just because I hate to go chalk, but I just think that the all-pro veteran experience and just the hunger of the 49ers is going to be a little bit too much for the Green Bay Packers, especially on that defensive side led by Fred Warner.
A lot of people like the Green Bay Packers. They're the youngest team in the NFL.
I love the direction they're headed, though, for sure.
I do, too. Like, once they finally cleared Rodgers out and all that stuff there, and it's just young. They just went all in on wide receivers the past 2 years in the draft. It's finally
crazy because they never did it for Aaron Rodgers.
Right. And he's mad.
Oh, he's livid.
They're like,
he's livid because, they drafted Christian Watson while he was there.
Yeah.
And Dobbs was on the team, but Dobbs was still trying to figure it out. He didn't really have a lot of patience for Dobbs.
And the narrative was that he was like, well, these receivers are too young. He needs like more experienced receivers to work with.
Christian Watson started clicking, but then he's having hamstring issues, soft tissue issues, which, is very unfortunate. But this Wicks, Dontavius Wicks, I like Wicks.
Yeah, Stu was hounding him too early.
I like Wicks.
Let's hit these rapid fire. Sunday, January 21st, 2024, 3 p.m. The 4 seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 3 seed Detroit Lions. This is the NFC matchups on NBC and Peacock. What you got for 3 versus 4?
I think this is going to be a shootout here, baby.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 38-35 Detroit. 38-35 Detroit. I'm rocking with Detroit.
Wow.
Just because of the way they looked and overcame almost blowing this game against the Rams, right? You know, the emotions, they had everything to lose in this game. You know, this was Stafford's game to come into Detroit and break their hearts and to prove to them why he left. And they beat him up. They faced adversity, and you know the way they struggled on the defensive side of the ball. You thought it was going to be over. Stafford's got the ball, driving, and then they make the one stop that they need, even though it might have been a holding. You know what? You know what? I'm reversing it. I'm going Tampa.
Ooh, Baker Mayfield getting to the NFC Championship.
I don't like the Lions. I don't like the Lions secondary. They give it up. They've been giving it up all year long, and I think Mike Evans is gonna have a field day. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they're gonna have a field day.
Man, it's gonna hurt my soul.
It's gonna be 38-35 regardless, though. 38-35 regardless.
That sounds right.
Baker lead the team to the NFC Championship game. Oh, you're gonna be ready to throw up.
We just interviewed Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator. I'm just like, where are we? Like, what has happened? Like, this is insanity. Divisional round. This is the nightcap, boy. This is it right here. Sunday, January 21st, 2024. The NFL gets it right every year. Like every year, once they get these matchups, they know exactly where to put them. This is the nightcap for the weekend. 6:30 p.m. kickoff's going to go into prime time. Number 3 Kansas City Chiefs on the road for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career. He's 15-1 or something like that at home at Arrowhead, taking on the 2 seed Buffalo Bills. It's an AFC divisional matchup. It's on CBS and Paramount Plus. What you got for this one before we get you out of here?
Chiefs. That's it. That's all. I just don't believe in the Bills. I think Josh Allen's going to make one too many plays. That's going to be head scratching, going to leave you confused. What are you doing? This is, one of the biggest moments of your career, and you fumbling the ball, you're throwing the ball over your head backwards. You're escaping the pocket, throwing back across the body. It's going to be something that happens because Josh Allen's going to do it more than Patrick Mahomes is going to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's more susceptible to make that boneheaded play than Patrick Mahomes, and I just trust Mahomes more than I ever would trust Josh Allen. So, plus the Chiefs' defense is better. The Chiefs, that's one thing people aren't really realize. This is the best defense the Chiefs have probably had since Night Train Lane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's been a long time.
I haven't had a Dick Night Train Lane reference on franchise players in a while. Yeah, and for me, Kansas City's receivers were catching the football. Like, it really is just as basic as that. Like, they were catching the football last week and they won. So it's like,
plus Pacheco, I like Pacheco, man.
I like Pacheco too. I like him and Edwards Helaire together, like as that 2-headed monster. But yeah, Pacheco runs hard, like in between the tackles. And while the wide receiving core is not as infamous as previous years, and Kelsey's getting up there in age, you're right. I got to a point a year or two ago where I was like, I just don't feel like betting against Pat Mahomes. Like every time I do it, I get bit. Like he just proves me wrong.
Terrible weekend in Buffalo. I don't think it's going to be a lot of scoring. Maybe 17-16, something like that.
Yeah, I can see that. I haven't even checked the weather. So
defensive, it's a disaster in Buffalo right now.
Yeah, people
they got like 2 more feet of snow since Sunday.
See, somebody was like worried about like how people were going to get in there and watch the games or whatnot, and worried about work and stuff. I'm like, those people ain't going to work. Those people ain't got work. They've probably been off work for 2 weeks. Like, but the city of Buffalo is shut down. They're just going to Bills games on the weekend, and then they just go home and dig out and go back to those Buffalo Bill games. Like, that's all they are doing right now. So don't worry about that. That stadium will be full, and they finally get the Chiefs in Buffalo.
It's more heartbreaking Buffalo. Watch
they got to do it this year. I always say it's a 3-4 year window for a team in the NFL. That's like their championship window. They're on year 4, like literally from when they first started challenging. If they don't break through now,
I said I think they're done. So
yeah,
and I was almost right. Week 12, I was sitting there. They were sitting at 6-6. I said, "See, I told y'all."
They fired the offensive coordinator and elevated guess who? Joe Brady, who used to be the passing coordinator here, and we fired him
everywhere.
We got dudes, dude. We got dudes everywhere, like spread out.
Successful.
Yeah, being successful. Like if San Francisco wins a ring, there's gonna be like 4 former Panthers getting a ring. Like if Buffalo wins, we call them Carolina North because of all the people that came from Carolina. The GM, the head coach, he was the DC here.
Like if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, they'll probably have 4 former Panthers get a ring. You think the Panthers win 4 games next year?
It's insane. Like we're just like, here's Christian McCaffrey. You don't even really need him, but here you go. Just take him. We don't want him. So you went chalk, I think.
No, I didn't.
No,
I
you
went,
picked.
I went
Bay.
Buffalo and Kansas. I mean, not Buffalo. I picked Kansas City and Tampa.
Oh, that's right. No, wait. Buffalo is the higher seed. That's right. No, I got it right. So you got Baltimore, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Buffalo. No, you said Kansas City. Okay, yeah. So you went on Sunday. You went against the chalk. On Saturday, you going with the 2-1 seeds. So it was like so you're looking at Baltimore taking on Kansas City in Baltimore and San Francisco hosting Tampa Bay next week.
Who would have thought Tampa Bay would have been an NFC Championship game?
Man, we thought they was tanking for Caleb Williams. We thought that's why they signed Baker Mayfield, like because they wanted Caleb Williams. And now look,
they had everything else but a quarterback. They had everything.
Yeah, I mean, literally, Tom Brady retired, and they could just parachute a guy in. Baker Mayfield was a former number 1 overall pick and a Heisman Trophy winner. Like I wanted him here.
Cleveland in the playoffs for the first time in a trillion years.
I wanted him here. I mean, all it's doing is
look bad in Carolina, but everybody looks bad in Carolina.
Everybody looks bad in Carolina, because once they leave, they look great. So I mean, it's just something about here right now.
Get out of here.
You
know what it is. You know what it is.
I just please don't take Derek Brown. Don't take Derek Brown from me. My man is looking to like Aaron Donald.
I'm waiting on Derek Brown departure.
Brian Burns
departure.
Frank
Yep.
They're all gonna go.
All the boys.
Yeah, all gonna go. Oh, Chin's already gone. He's unrestricted free agent. He ain't coming back here. He didn't play at all this year. He ain't coming back. He might be actually know where he'd be perfect. Baltimore in that defense.
Actually, we got it. We got the young second year first team all pro in his second year. Kyle Hamilton. We ain't got no space for you, Chin.
Yeah.
Sorry,
he's like this weird hybrid kind of.
Whatever
he's
you
too
want.
Small to be linebacker, but he's too big to be a safety. So they kind of play him.
He's 6'4".
Yeah.
So he's 6'4", like 240.
But he's not really.
He's low key like a pass rusher, bro. It's crazy.
Kinda, but they don't use him at all. Like that's the thing we can't figure out.
I was talking about Kyle Hamilton. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm talking about Chin. Like Chin ain't coming back. He ain't gonna be.
No, I wouldn't either. He showed so much promise those first I'm
thinking about not coming back. Like me, I might not. I don't know.
I've been told you pack your bag. You stayed around for pain.
I ain't going nowhere. They ain't going. I'm a glutton. I'm a glutton for it. Like, it can't be no worse than what it was. But yeah, we'll see. Because we thought it could be no worse than Matt Rule.
Did you know, bro? I know you probably already talked about this. I know we're not here talking Panthers, but did you know even though the Panthers won 2 games, they never had a lead in a fourth quarter during regulation?
Yep, the 2 wins they won were walk-off field goals.
0-0-0-0.
And it
gracious.
It felt like it. I had to watch it felt like it. We didn't have a lead in any of them.
I'm sitting right here. I'm in the skybox with it.
Soon as the other team scored 17 points, it was like it's a wrap. Like
it's over.
We can't score 17. That's sad.
Only time you can score more than 17 points is the other team scored 40.
Yeah, exactly. Matter of fact, those Green Bay Packers, they were the last team we scored any points on, and that was week 15 where they had that
16.
shootout.
It was perfect. It was 16. It was 33-30. You end up winning Christmas Eve. I'm like, okay, things are headed in the right direction. Coming off the win.
That was it.
Disgusting win the Falcons.
That was it.
The boys didn't score again.
No more scoring.
Said, oh my God.
No more scoring this year.
What is going on?
We used our allotment.
I couldn't believe it. You scored 30 points. Most you ever scored all season, week 16, and follow that up. 17-18 with goose eggs.
None.
Goose eggs?
None.
After the win, 9-7 dogfight.
That's why I don't understand how Thomas Brown's getting interviews. I'm like, how is Thomas Brown getting interviews after all? I don't know. Well, we'll revisit.
You leave Carolina, you're successful.
You get better. You're like, so you're leaving, huh? You must have something to tank. We'll see what you got. So we'll find out if Jaelen can carry on B-Dot's streak of undefeatedness here through the divisional round, and then we'll have another guest picker next week to pick the 2 championship games. So, Jaelen, appreciate you coming on, bro.
Appreciate you having me, bro.
Coming up, we got Brendan Marks from The Athletic. He's going to come through, talk a little Carolina and Duke hoops. Carolina's back, number 4 in the country, blowing out teams by double digits in the ACC. Like, it's like, what year is this? So, like, we'll talk about that and see how far they can go. You're watching Franchise Players here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Franchise players are often referred to as the face of the franchise.
Welcome back into Franchise Players here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Catch us every Friday, exclusive video at our YouTube channel. Rate and subscribe. We're trying to drive to 5,000 subscribers. YouTube.com/@TobaccoRoadSportsRadio for Franchise Players, as well as Believe in Carolina Panthers. All kinds of stuff from the Keep Pounding Podcast Network and more. So if you're looking for coverage of North Carolina-centric sports, we are definitely your spot to be. Shout out to Jaelen, who just stopped through, gave us his picks for NFL divisional round. Saturday and Sunday, one of the best weekends in sports besides the opening weekend of March Madness, in my opinion. So very much looking forward to this upcoming weekend. Chris Lee will slide through in just a little bit in the sports buffet. With us right now from The Athletic, he's the beat writer for North Carolina and Duke, Brendan Marks in the house. What's going on, Brendan?
Hey, I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me.
So I was trying to remember, I think the last time we spoke was at the beginning of the season, like around October, and you gave us previews on Carolina and Duke. A lot has changed since we last spoke in terms of both of these teams. And I want to start off with number 7, Duke. They've got Pitt, 8 o'clock Saturday night in Cameron. Both starters, Mark Mitchell and Jeremy Roach, apparently have knee injuries. Can you give an update on their status going into Saturday?
Yeah, I would be surprised for sure, starting with Mark Mitchell if he plays. This has been a recurring issue with him. You know, he missed the Tennessee game last year, which ended up being Duke's season-ending loss with a knee sprain. Missed some time over the summer while he was recovering from that injury. Was still working through it at the start of the season. And then, last weekend, right before the game was announced, he's going to miss this one with a knee sprain too. So it sounds like it's going to be a couple of games for him. I'd be surprised if Mark is available Saturday. Jeremy Roach has a chance to play. John Shire said Monday that he was day-to-day. They did some imaging on his knee. He exited the game last Saturday a little bit early. He was struggling with that knee, but it sounds like he has a chance to play. But Mitchell, I would be very surprised.
Duke just played Pitt January the 9th. It's a quick turnaround in terms of I think they've only had like a game in between or something like that because they were off all this week. Kyle Filipowski went off on that game. He shot 11 for 12 from the field. The Devils shot 11 for 25 from 3 in that game. To you, from what you've seen so far from this Duke team, which is more important to Blue Devils' success, outside shooting or feed and flip?
Well, flip is sort of the non-negotiable to me. I mean, you have to let the man get his touches. I mean, he's Duke's best player for a reason. He's their leading scorer. Right now, he's top 3 in Ken Palm's National Player of the Year ratings.
Oh, wow.
He's probably going to be a first-team All-American. We're doing our midseason ACC or our midseason The Athletic Awards, and I voted for him as an All-American. I mean, he's been that good this year, just coming off a career-high 30 points. Him getting his touches is not negotiable to me. The thing to me that determines Duke's ceiling is the second part there that you're talking about. It's the shooting. Because when Jeremy Roach, when Jared McCain, when Caleb Foster, when those guys are on from 3, Tyrese Proctor actually really came on in this last game, hit 3 threes in the span of 90 seconds or so. We haven't seen that from him since the end of last season. When those guys are hitting threes, Duke's ceiling is as a Final Four team. But that to me is the thing that sort of determines where this team ultimately ends up.
Follow him on Twitter for the latest at Brendan R. Marks. Brendan joining us here on Franchise Players on this Friday, January the 19th, 2024. What's been the biggest surprise about Duke that you didn't expect coming into the season? Because we all have like expectations or predictions or thoughts of how a team's going to go or whatnot. Now that we're about halfway through and deep in conference play, what's something about this Duke team that is pretty obvious at this point that you weren't expecting as you came into the year?
Yeah, I think to focus it on one guy, I knew that this recruiting class would be good. It was number 2 in the country. I wasn't sure exactly how the roles would shake out and how much consistency they would have until we got to this point in the year. What Jared McCain has done over the first 2 months of the season, I think, has been eye-opening for me. I mean, I knew he had the reputation coming in as a sharpshooter, somebody who is very, ready to contribute. He's been an every game starter, and I think you could argue in the middle of the season, he was Duke's best player. I mean, the strides that he has made in terms of rebounding, that's something that Duke's inherently going to struggle with this year just because you lost a 7-footer in Derek Lively. Mark Mitchell's been in and out of the lineup. You're starting 3 guards. Like Jared McCain at 6'3" has absolutely helped make up for that rebounding deficit. He has been one of the better rebounding guards that I've seen in some time. Obviously, the 3-point shot wasn't there at the beginning of the year, has come on lately. Like he's just a really, really good, solid complementary player. And when Jeremy Roach is healthy and playing the way he's been this year, he's taken a step. Kyle Filipowski's great. Jared McCain, to me, has just been so impressive. And, quite frankly, he's kind of taken the role that I expected Tyrese Proctor to have this season.
So Duke's kind of finding their way. I know they had a little dip there right around that Georgia Tech loss where people were kind of questioning, but they seemed like they turned it back the other direction. Then there's the school 8 miles up the road, North Carolina, ranked number 4 this week. They go on the road to take on Boston College. It's a 2:15 tip-off. It's a weird tip-off time, and it's on the CW too. So it's part of that CW extra ACC game package thing they put together. So it's going to be on there. They defeated Louisville by double digits earlier this week. I want to say it's the 5th double-digit win they've had in ACC play. No, I think they beat Florida State by double digit. No, they beat them by like 8 or something like that. So yeah, so all of their wins have been by 8 or more in the ACC, and 4 or 5 of the 6 have been by double digits. They're 6-0 in the ACC. They're the only undefeated team in the league right now. What is the Tar Heels' weakness from what you've seen so far from this team? Like, what's the one thing that a team could kind of exploit that you've seen, or do they have one?
Yeah, that's a great question. Since Christmas, UNC has been the number 1 defense in the country by adjusted defensive efficiency. It's been remarkable how much better they've been on the defensive end of the ball. They're like 2nd in 3-point percentage, 2nd in 2-point percentage, 1st in effective field goal defense. Like, the defense has really come along. And that's kind of surprising to me because you're starting 2 guards who are sub 6'1". If there is a vulnerability for this team, I still think that it can be on the interior. Armando Bacot has been better this year in situations where he gets into foul trouble. We've seen Jalen Washington be productive. I don't know that we've seen Jalen Washington be productive for 25 minutes in a game per se. If you get Armando Bacot into foul trouble, I do think that there are opportunities to exploit North Carolina on the inside. It kind of shifts all the roles that UNC has. But, not many teams in the country have a big man who's going to be able to give Bacot that kind of difficulty. So there's a reason this team is being talked about as a Final Four team. Like RJ Davis, I just talked about it with Kyle Filipowski. I voted for him as a first-team All-American.
That was actually my next question. I was going to ask you about RJ and that All-American thing. If Flip was on there, if RJ was on there as well. So you've got RJ and Flip first team All-American on your thing this season? Or?
I've got RJ definitely first team. I forget if I put Flip on the first or the second team. There's a lot of good bigs this year. Like Zach Edey's sort of a slam dunk. You've got Day'Ron Holmes at Dayton. There's a lot of really, really good bigs this year. But RJ, to me, it's not even a question. I was trying to figure out, like, is there a guard playing better ball than RJ over the past month and a half? And I'm just like, no. They're really like, he's just on it this year for some reason. It's crazy to watch. Yeah, the only other guy who, I put him and Tristan Newton from UConn as my first team All-American guards. And like, those are the guys. Like, he has been sensational. The thing to me that's so crazy is like, we used to talk about the last 3 seasons, how much Caleb Love consumed this offense, like how much usage he required essentially. RJ is currently operating at a significantly higher level of usage than Caleb Love ever did. And he's doing it at a significantly higher rate of efficiency than Caleb Love ever did too. Yeah. I think you could make the argument he's the best free throw shooter in the entire country. He's now tied the UNC school record for consecutive free throws in a row. Assistant coach Jeff Lebo has that record still, but they're tied now. He's just been lights out. He's shooting 3-pointers at the best rate of his career. Like, basically pick a category, and he's posting a career high right now. So with him doing that, like, UNC does have sort of the offensive fallback that it didn't necessarily have the past couple of seasons. And that's why even in some of these games, like, the Pitt game a couple of weeks ago, the NC State game, like, they're not UNC's best, but he has been a consistent enough source of offense combined with their number 1 ranked defense that, this is a really tough team to beat right now. Yeah, and it's funny too. I'm a Carolina fan, diehard, and we've kind of gone through it the past like 5 or 6 years in terms of just not really trusting our own team. Like, it's crazy when you're reading out those 3-point defensive statistics, and like in my head, I'm just like, they can't be right. They can't be right because we normally don't do that. Like we run under screens, like we don't cover the 3 like that. But you're right. Like, I'm sitting there watching them. I'm just like, is the best defensive team that I've seen them have since maybe 2019 and probably beyond that, 2017 maybe, in terms of being able to play defense. They're very deep. I've said it multiple times that Hubert Davis went to the portal and built a Dean Smith roster pretty much in terms of if you could take a Dean Smith roster from 1979 or whatever and take the names out and just have the positions there and like what their role is like on the team, you could do it on Hubert's roster right now and just take the names out and leave the numbers and the positions. It's like, hey,
This is the first guy off the bench. He's our second big man. This is what he does. He shoots, he rebounds, blah, blah, blah. The power forward is the J.R. Reed, James Worthy type. It's Harrison Ingram. He can post you. He can shoot a three. He plays defense. He usually guards the best player on the other side, like that kind of thing. And they've done all that. But all of this works because R.J. Davis has made the leap from junior year to senior year to that senior Carolina point guard, where it's like it feels like the game is slowed down for him. Everything is within his control. He's like playing within the game as opposed to – that's the biggest difference. Caleb kind of forced it sometimes. Like if things weren't going, he would just, take just jack shots. You don't catch that vibe with RJ. It's not like he's just throwing it up there. It's usually the ball is moved around 3-4 times. He's wide open, or he's the best shooter. Like whatever the situation is, it's probably the best shot in that situation, and he more than likely hits it. So I mean, shooting 41% from three. So it's crazy to me that RJ's gone from where I remember him freshman year, where he was just really raw 4-star kid from New York, to where he is now, where I'm like, I think he's the best guard in the country. Like the way he's playing, and if he keeps going like this, the sky's the limit for Carolina. Besides Duke, who else in the ACC is the biggest threat to Carolina? Because I do feel like Carolina is kind of taking the lead as being the team to beat in the ACC, and Duke is going to have something to say about it here in like a week or two. But besides those two who have kind of separated themselves from the pack, the rest of the ACC, especially that middle group, Wake Forest, State, Miami, Clemson, did I say Florida State? Yeah, that group, Virginia, like they're all kind of mushed right there underneath them. And I'm having a hard time kind of figuring out which one of those teams will I expect to rise because of the way now they're just eating each other. So to you, which team out of that group there would be the most likely to give Carolina issue going forward?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. None of them. Not a single one of them.
I'll take that. Yeah.
Right now it's a two-team league. It is really. I mean, and my hope, as always, is that the last Saturday of the regular season, I'm walking into Cameron Indoor and those teams are playing for the regular season title. That's what I'm always hoping for. And I think it's very realistic this year. Like,
yeah.
Clemson started out so strong and has now lost 4 or 5. The only wins against Boston College in that stretch. Like, they're still an NCAA tournament team, but I mean, our resident bracketologist at The Athletic, he put out his bracket today. Those are the only 3 ACC teams he has in the field.
Wow.
Which is it's wild to believe.
Normally we would complain about it, but I mean, if you've really been watching, it's like, I can't really make an argument for NC State, even though I know I know they beat Wake the other night. I know it was controversial at the end and everything else, but State hasn't really beaten anybody. Like if you look at their record, like they really have not played anybody. And even in the ACC, they've only played Carolina at this point, and Wake's kind of the same way, where they didn't really play anybody. So it's like, and then Miami and Clemson were top 25 teams, non-conference, ranked nationally, and just fell off a cliff like the past 2 weeks, and it's hurt the whole league, in my opinion, in terms of there's not a lot of places to get quad ones once you get into conference play, whereas in the Big 12, you can get a quad one every night. It feels like there's like 6 teams ranked in the Big 12 or whatever. So the perception has changed. Where that used to be the ACC. The ACC was the one that would have 7-8 teams that were ranked and everything else. How do they flip this back? Because it's been like this now since we came out of COVID, where the ACC is not really looked at perception-wise as the best basketball league. But then come March, we're the ones that have like 4 teams in the Elite 8 or whatever, and 2 in the Final 4, and we're looking at the SEC, and they're all gone first weekend or whatever. Like,
right.
What do we need to do?
Yeah, so I think it's a great point, and I think there's basically 2 things that I have to say to it. Number one is in terms of like getting back to that point, I don't know that the ACC is ever going back to that point. Like what the ACC is doing in March is, I think, a product of the fact that the league has a bunch of different styles. And so in the course of ACC play, like you're going to play NC State's pressure defense. You're going to have to go up against Miami's 4-out offense. You're going to have to play all of these different styles. Steve Forbes and Mike Young both have these high octane offenses at Wake and at Virginia Tech, and they can kill you with motion and doing a bunch of different things. I think that is what prepares ACC teams for March. But the fact of the matter is, the ACC right now, I think, has 7 coaches who are in their first 3 years in the league. You've lost 4 Hall of Famers in the last 6 seasons, with middling success replacing them. You're talking about a situation where even the best players in the ACC are going to have opportunities to go elsewhere. There's more freedom of player movement than there's ever been before. The freedom of player movement and the way college athletics is changing, I think, has inherently hurt schools like a Virginia, for example, that used to slow cook players for 3 or 4 years. Like, you can't do that anymore. And so you put all those things together, you put into consideration, the SECs make a lot more money in football. We've talked about that a couple of times. That money's trickling down to basketball too. The SEC has made some fantastic coaching hires in recent years. Now they have money behind it to go out and get guys in the portal. Same thing in the Big 12. Like, there isn't an easy fix for the ACC to get back to what it was. I mean, unless I think Duke and North Carolina aren't going anywhere. I don't think that's a question. But for the rest of the league, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding. And especially next year when you're bringing in Cal and SMU and Stanford, you're bringing in teams that are just weighing down the bottom.
I keep forgetting they're coming.
Yeah. And so it gets to the point of what you're talking about, where there aren't quad ones that you can go out and you can win and improve your resume. Instead, there's the opposite. There's an abundance of quad 4 trap games where you can go and completely sink yourself. And that's the situation Miami just found itself in. You lose at home to Louisville, you are not making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Miami, I mean, that's how it is. And it's not fair because it's one result, but that's the state of the ACC right now. And quite frankly, as sad as it is for you and for me, who have grown up on the ACC, there isn't a clear or even long-term pathway really that I see to getting back to what the league used to be.
It's crazy too, because I just saw, even though Carolina beat Louisville by 16 or whatever it was by the end of that game, and pretty much had control of it throughout, they dropped in the net ranking because of that game, because they played Louisville. It was just like, come on. They beat them at home by double digits and they're still going to drop in the rating. The whole thing is weird. So I feel like you don't get the same juice as you do in college football, where if you beat a team, when Texas beat Alabama early, in September, by the time you get to the end of the year, both teams are two different teams, but they still get the juice from beating Alabama back in September. In college basketball, it doesn't really work that way. It's based on kind of where are they at the end of the year. Your juice is based on how they finished the season, as opposed to where they were back in December or January when they were ranked in top 5 or whatever. So I don't know, it's different. It's different, but I do like the fact that Carolina and Duke seemingly have navigated this new world in terms of the portal, NIL, just all these different ways to build a team now, and they both seem to be thriving now in the way both teams are kind of going about doing it. So follow Brendan on Twitter at Brendan R. Marks. He is the beat writer for Carolina and Duke sports for The Athletic. Brendan, appreciate you coming through, man.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Thanks so much.
Coming up, Chris Lee will sit in the David Glenn Sports Buffet chair. We'll talk a little Charlotte Hornets. I don't know what they're doing. Well, we know what they're doing. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about the Panthers. We'll talk a little bit more. You're watching Franchise Players here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
In professional sports, a franchise player is an athlete who is not simply the best player on their team, but one that the team can build their franchise around for the foreseeable future.
Shout out to WFMY's Jaelen, Gilkey, and the Athletics Brendan Marks for joining us today on Franchise Players, your home for triad sports coverage. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. Make sure you check us out every Friday. We are on terrestrial radio in the triad at 5 p.m. every Friday as part of the TGI Friday lineup over on WWBG 1470 AM in Greensboro. If you missed it, you can hear it on WTOB 980 AM, 96.7 FM at 6 p.m. Over in Winston, Salem. And, of course, you can watch every week on youtube.com/@TobaccoRoadSportsRadio or listen to the podcast on any major podcast platform. Chris Lee from WRAL joining us right now, taking the David Glenn Sports Buffet chair, where we basically just invite you to pull up a chair to the buffet and we give you a little cornucopia of sports mayhem for about 12 to 15 minutes as we hop around. What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Oh man, not much. Just we're about to really enter a busy season after a really busy football season. So these few weeks before things really start up in college basketball, I like to try to chill out as much as possible, because once Duke Carolina gets here,
it's a whole other season.
It's on go.
Right around the corner. That's literally in 2 weeks or whatever, right? So
So go after that.
And probably for the first time since 2019, both teams are going to be ranked going into that matchup, if I'm not mistaken, which always makes it a much bigger deal. And to be honest, the way the top 10 has been playing, they might be 2 top 5 teams by the time they get there. So
very well could be.
Yeah. So we'll see what's up with them. Brendan gave us some cool stuff on Duke and Carolina a little bit earlier in the show. People can go and check that out. I have not been ignoring them. They just haven't really had a whole lot to talk about. I want to start off in Charlotte, not with the Panthers. We'll get to them in a minute. The Charlotte Hornets. We need to talk about the Charlotte Hornets because the Hornets are 8-30. They have lost 6 straight games. New ownership, of course. Gabe Plotkin and those guys who bought it from Michael Jordan. Is it time to clean house roster-wise? Because I feel like this experiment's been going on for like 2-3 years now, and it feels like injuries have just like derailed their seasons from the very beginning, and they might flirt with the play-in towards the end of the season if they get healthy enough, but I don't think they're gonna get healthy enough this year. I mean, they're 24 games under or 22 games under 500 right now. Name 3 Hornets from this current roster that you would keep to build a future roster with.
Honestly, I would keep LaMelo.
You did just give him $260 million, so you probably need to.
I think he's the type of player where, especially I feel like he has a lot of the early Steph Curry type of thing going on, like with the different like ankle injury, lower extremities type of injuries or whatever. And if he can kind of like figure that out, maybe he needs to call up Steph and like, hey, how did you get back on the right track? And kind of stay away from these types of things. Maybe he can kind of, stay on the court at some point. But and then, I feel like other players will want to try to come play with him, which will be important in Charlotte since it's a, mid-level, market, that type of thing. And not one of the sexy locations like Miami or LA or Phoenix or anything like that. So, but him and after that, man, I'm kind of struggling with it. I would say Mark Williams is one person I would keep. I feel like he has an opportunity to grow into a decent center in the NBA. After that, man, I'm not sure. I like PJ Washington. I've always thought he was undersized for his position, being a 6'7" power forward. But like, in the NBA now where you can kind of go positionless and you can kind of go small ball and spread it out, maybe it works, but also like, I'm just not sure. I'm not sure what he provides to the team to make them a winner.
Yeah, no, I knew where you were going.
It's hard, man. I would say maybe Brandon Miller.
That's where I was going.
I guess those would probably be the 3. And I'm not.
So everybody else is tradable. Yeah.
I'm not opposed to, once you start building around those 3, to maybe trade a couple of those pieces to get better pieces. It just kind of depends on.
So it doesn't sound like you're married to any of these players. Like,
I think I like LaMelo because I think LaMelo has an opportunity to do something for the Hornets that possibly Cam Newton did for the Panthers. As far as like somebody who like that the nation is interested in. Yeah. And so it just makes you like take a peek over in Charlotte just because they're there. But you have to put the right pieces around LaMelo. He's not going to be able to be Superman and just will this team towards anything major like Cam Newton was able to do. So that's not the comparison I'm making. It's more so the outside just interest in that particular person. Yeah,
making the Hornets nationally relevant. Like LaMelo is probably the best candidate to possibly do that. I feel like the Hornets have a roster where contending teams are looking at their roster and they're like, that guy can help us. Like Terry Rozier. Terry Rozier could help probably 5 or 6 teams that are contending right now. Miami's the first team that comes to mind, that if he got traded to Miami or someplace, he would be instant offense for them. The Lakers, like they could use somebody like that. So same with Gordon Hayward, like that, him coming in someplace, being like that 6-man coming off the bench, instant offense type stuff. The Hornets are kind of set up weird where it's like they've got these vets and then like you've got all these rookies and young guys that are a good 5 to 8 years younger than them. And there's this gap in between. Because I know they say you got to have a veteran in the locker room, someone that's won. We don't really have a guy in the locker room that's a veteran that's won, like anywhere. Hayward, Rozier, like they're vets, but they haven't really won any place they've really been either. So I'm all for at this point. I don't want to go through another year like this where it's like, I thought the apathy towards the Panthers was bad this year. We don't even talk about the Hornets. Like the Hornets are just like that team over the, yeah, we have them. They're ours. They're in our family, but we don't talk about them. They're just, they're just over the room during the family reunion or whatever. And I'm tired of that because this used to be a Hornets state. Like you couldn't go anywhere without seeing a Hornets starter jacket or, you know what I mean? Like it was just, and then we weren't very good then, but we were fun. We were fun to watch. And like, I think the whole Bally Sports deal has really affected fan relationships towards the Hornets because you basically have to pay to watch the Hornets, and no one's again they're 8-30, so like no one's going to really pay $20 a month to watch that. One of the reasons why I wanted to bring the Hornets into the triad through Tobacco Road, which we do, we're the ones that are the production partners for the Hornets radio network. We actually broadcast all the Hornets games on WWBG in Greensboro. We're the only outlet in the triad that's actually putting out Hornets games that you can listen to for free. And I feel like that losing that TV thing when it was all over the air TV back in the day when we were kids, you could watch every game on channel 48 or whatever it was. We don't have that anymore. So a lot of people don't even know who's on the team. So
even here in Raleigh, like Bally Sports Southeast isn't available.
See?
So if you do have, if you do have, cable spectrum, like regular Spectrum cable, you can't even watch the Hornets. And so I feel bad for the people who don't even have that and don't have access to Bally and still don't want to pay for Bally because there's no way for you to watch the Hornets.
Jeez, this is ridiculous. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Lee TV, WRAL sports anchor, Panthers playbook co-host Chris Lee joining us here on Franchise Players. Let's get into the NFC South. Bill Belichick has a second interview with the Atlanta Falcons. Name the one coach you don't want to see in the NFC South next year. With Atlanta having an opening. Is Belichick? Yeah, the more I think about it, I'm just like,
it's I don't. The reason why is not because I feel like he's gonna make Atlanta into a Super Bowl powerhouse. Because like in the back of my mind, I'm kind of also like, I hope the Panthers aren't the last NFC South team without a Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd rather get that before Atlanta.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why is that every year you can, for the most part, count on at least one win from Atlanta, right? Like that's the one team where it's like, we can count on that.
Yeah.
And I feel like Bill Belichick in the NFC South kind of would look at the Carolina Panthers the same way he looked at the Jets. He could pick us apart and look at every single thing that we do wrong, got wrong, and all that, and put together a game plan to where it's like now the Falcons are the team we can't beat. And I don't necessarily think he's going to take them and do something like magical and spectacular with them. I think they will be a good team under him for sure. But I think he's going to have to prove that he hasn't lost touch in the current NFL the way he did in his latter years post Tom Brady in New England. That's the part that I'll be looking forward to see what he'll do. But there's no doubt he'll turn his team around into a team that could potentially win the South and, might be a first round exit in the playoffs, but they'll definitely be somebody that will be feared. It's just it's going to be up to, what quarterback they're going to get, honestly.
I keep hearing the words of former Panther general manager Scott Fitterer in my head where he's discussing the Panthers at this point last year. And he's like, well, really just a quarterback away. We want a quarterback we can parachute in and we're good to go. Atlanta's actually there. Atlanta's actually at that point. They've got a first-round running back in the backfield. They've got a first-round pick at wide receiver. They got a first-round pick at tight end. They rebuilt the defense like literally in free agency last year. I didn't realize there was only like 3 returning starters from the defense the year prior. They went out and rebuilt the defense. So like they really are just a quarterback away from being competitive again in a draft where I think they're picking 9th or 8th or something like that. And you've got some teams like a Chicago that are going to be sitting on number 1 and may not necessarily want to pick at number 1. I can see Atlanta getting aggressive and moving up and taking a Caleb Williams or a Drake May or someone to that sort and just kind of going from there, which makes me really nervous. Who do you want the Panthers to have at head coach? I know I'm on record as wanting Jim Harbaugh, but as each day goes by, that seems like that's not going to happen because apparently we don't want winners. We don't want winners here. So we're not even going to interview them. We're not even going to talk to them. we're just going to pretend like you don't even care. Like this. So
one of the things I've been saying on Panthers playbook, the show that I do with Dennis Cox is is not that I've given up on the team or whatever, but like when David Tepper has had an opportunity to hire each time, I felt like it was just an okay hire. And I feel like that's what's going to happen here. You know, it's I don't think it's going to be that splash guy. He had an opportunity to do something splashy. Instead, he got Matt Rule. He had an opportunity to do something splashy last year, got Frank Reich and fired him, you know, quickly. The quickest head coach has been fired in the NFL in 45 years. Yeah. So I kind of feel like maybe we're going to that same level. Like maybe it's just going to be like, we're going to hear about the hire. We're going to be like, okay. And I don't know who that's going to be or whatever. I'm hoping that I think today is when they talk to Ben Johnson virtually.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that goes really well, but we already know that he's going to have to overpay for him, and he may not even be it. Like he might, you know, be Josh McDaniels 2.0.
See, that's my concern with this whole talk of young offensive coordinators that have never ran a team before. I don't feel like you need a young offensive mind to be the head coach. You need one on your staff, but you don't necessarily need one as head coach. You just need a guy that can lead men. Like you need a Steve Wilkes type, like someone that can push guys through a wall or whatever. I have a theory. I'm just going to drop it right here. I haven't put it on the air yet. I'll probably go into more detail with it on Believe in Panthers next week. But I'm starting to formulate this theory. The more we start to learn about what happened over the past 2 years of the Panthers, I feel like they tried to tank the season last year so they could draft Bryce Young. Problem was they didn't expect Steve Wilkes to win football games with what they left behind for him, which is why Steve Wilkes did not get hired in the main job because he messed up the whole thing. They had to trade up stuff to go get Bryce anyway. Look at what happened when they fired Matt Rule. They fired him 5 games into the year. They were 1-4 or something to that effect. They pull up Steve Wilkes, and then what's the very first thing they do? They trade off their best player. Why? And for what? They didn't get a first-round pick. They get nothing for him. Why do you trade off your best player unless you're trying to lose? And then they left them basically with nothing. So to me, I'm in my head, I'm thinking, because what do we know? We know the Teppers have been in love with Bryce Young for 2 years, not just one. They've loved him since his Heisman year in 2021. Which means they had that whole offseason to think about it, plot about it, figure it out. And then once they realized Rule wasn't going to be the right guy.
Before that, in the spring, I think he hadn't even started a game yet. And they were scouting like a spring practice or something.
Yes,
like
they had tunnel vision towards Bryce. And I had you responded. I had a tweet that went viral like last Sunday when I was like, you know, it's okay if we start talking about the fact that the tunnel vision that the Panthers had to Bryce might have affected their evaluation process. Yeah. Maybe CJ Stroud was the best guy. Yeah. Just because Bryce got picked number 1 does not guarantee he's going to be an all-pro and a great player. Like, you know what I mean? Look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was picked 2nd in his draft. Look at who's the kid with the Jets? The quarterback.
Oh, Zach Wilson.
He was picked 2nd. Jamarcus Russell went number 1. You know, like it's a crapshoot. Like there's no way to know for sure. And I feel like because he went number 1 and what we gave up for him, a lot of the fan base is like they don't want to throw any dirt on Bryce Young. They feel like nothing he's done is on Bryce Young, but he had some deficiencies, and a lot of that's on the Panther coaching staff too. They didn't try to fix it, you know. So
I think I do think that is a separate conversation in that, like, if you're looking at the entire picture of what's going on with the Carolina Panthers, it's hard to look at Bryce. Like I said this on Adam Gold show. I said, you know, the Panthers are a house, right? And the foundation has been shaky. It shouldn't even pass code, but they still built the house on top of it. And Bryce Young is the furniture, and the furniture is sliding around because the foundation isn't right. But everybody's looking at the furniture and saying, well, "What's wrong with this furniture?" Yeah. It's
like it's so wet.
Look at the foundation. Like the foundation is just off, and so like we don't know if that furniture is going to be ugly in another house that has their foundation together. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But once the foundation is together, then we can get a full, actual evaluation. But
see, here's the problem with that. Once you do have the house built, the furniture is already dirty. Like it's already been outside.
That's real. That is 100% real, and that's my fear. My fear is the Carolina Panthers will ruin Bryce Young and what he probably should have been in the NFL. Like, you can't tell me, honestly, and I mean this, and I'm gonna be real. I wanted CJ Stroud for the Carolina Panthers, but I always thought that Bryce Young would be good, though. I just didn't. I preferred CJ Stroud for the size. I always felt like Bryce Young will be a great NFL player for the right team if he got a like a Drew Brees-esque setup somewhere.
If he was in Houston, I feel like he would have had a much better year.
He would be great now. The stuff that we're talking about with CJ Stroud, we'd be saying that about Bryce Young right now. But it's just, it's the Panthers are the wrong situation. And I'm just afraid that he will I'm afraid that the team will ruin him. And so I think, number one, the main thing is find somebody who can, put that guy in the best positions. Who that's going to be, I have no clue. So that's kind of a non-answer. But I just hope that David Tepper, along with the search firms that they've hired and the new GM, whoever that is, if that person's even going to be in the process, will make the right decision, for that particular person. I just hope that there's some adults in the room to make these decisions.
I'll go ahead and say it right now. I think the next GM is going to be Dan Morgan. It looks like they've slowed down on the GM search, and he was kind of a favorite coming into it to begin with. I don't know if that's good or bad. I like Dan Morgan as a person. I loved him as a player. Yeah. But he was also in the building for a lot of these decisions that happened the past 2 or 3 years. So I don't know. Real quick before we get you out of here, on this note, Super Bowl prediction out of the 8 teams that are left. Who you got in the Super Bowl?
I was thinking this before the Ravens whooped up on the 49ers, but it just kind of felt like those are the strongest teams heading into. Now the Bills might have something to say about that because they've been playing lights out lately, and I don't see how the Chiefs come out of Buffalo with a win, honestly. So if there's a team that could upset the Ravens on that end, it could be the Bills, but. In the NFC, I just don't see any team better than the 49ers. And now if they are 100% healthy, and now that they have Christian McCaffrey in for over a year and they have their receivers, they have everything together, this is the year. Like, you got to do it this year. Can't miss this window.
I watched Panthers Playbook last night when I got home from work, and I was watching your latest episode. And when Dennis started going through the list of all the former Panther players and coaches that are just having such a great time right now on different teams that are still active, like San Francisco with McCaffrey, the DC's Wilkes, Buffalo, the head coach was from here, McDermott, Brandon Beane should probably be our general manager, and he's up in Buffalo basically building the 2015 Panthers. Like I just see his influence across the entire league of that 2015 team, and I'm like, we didn't get the benefit of it. Like, we didn't get it. We're the ones that were actually here. And it was our team, and now it's spread out all across the NFL. I'm gonna stop it right there. I'm just gonna stop it right there because
it's and part of it's just the unfortunate part of like what happened with Jerry Richardson, then selling, and then getting it to somebody who looked at all of that and said, "Nope, I want to do it my way."
Yeah, I want something different. I don't even want to bring in the Steelers stuff. Like, I'm not even going to bring a Steelers assistant coach here or nothing. I'm just let's just do it like this. DJ Moore, it doesn't matter if he's a good player or not. I'll just put somebody else in his play. Chris, appreciate you being on, man. Thanks, man. That's it for Franchise Players for Friday, January the 19th, 2024. We'll be back next week with a new episode here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.